Yakuza spin-offs are never treated like side entries. They usually don't deviate far enough from the core aspects of Ryuga Gotoku to be considered adjacent to it. They also don't function similar enough to one another to be considered as a group like Dragon Quest Monsters or Mega Man Battle Network. I've been dreading Yakuza Dead Souls because of its reputation. It's considered the worst Yakuza of the bunch for various reasons, but since it's a mainline entry I have access to, I felt inclined to cover it. Well, I played it, and I have one thing to say. Why does nobody like Dead Souls? This game's fantastic! This isn't going to be a typical Questrospective video. I'm not going to sing another karaoke song and subtly use differently themed music for each playable character section in a 2-hour-long video designed to be watched in parts. I definitely won't convince you by summarizing plot details and painstakingly combing through mechanics to connect all the dots together. What I'm trying to say is, I don't want to make another full-length feature film, and the third one was an accident. We're taking the straightforward approach today, because I want you to play Yakuza Dead Souls, or at least to want to play Yakuza Dead Souls. So here's a list of reasons why Yakuza Dead Souls is a fun time, and why I believe it deserves a lot more praise than anyone has ever given it. Yakuza Set to 11. I began this series describing the Yakuza games as jumping the shark since its inception. After playing Dead Souls, I am now aware it's possible to perform a second jump in midair, even further over the shark. I've elected to coin this phenomenon as jumping the Tsuchinoko. This is not time for smart melodrama Yakuza. This is Kiryu cracking a plastic house phone with his bare hands Yakuza. This is Goro Majima desperately clinging to the last marble inside his brain, Yakuza. A zombie outbreak begins in the center of Kamurocho as part of a plot to exact revenge on Kiryu for the events of Yakuza 2. The perpetrator, an uber fanboy of Ryuji Goda, 2's antagonist, has kidnapped Haruka to lure Kiryu into the quarantine zone. With his daughter kidnapped and his city being torn apart by the undead, Kiryu is very, very upset. Is a zombie outbreak a horribly inefficient way of getting revenge? Yes, but Yakuza Dead Souls is not about efficiency. It's self-aware and has fun with extremes. The legend of the Dragon of Dojima goes from urban legend to religious gospel. Ryuji Goda is suddenly alive and has a cybernetic gun arm. Dead Souls is a fun, edgy action romp and still delivers an engaging story better put together than some of the mainline narratives. Insane premise aside, character motivations make sense, plot developments keep you invested in what happens next, and quite possibly for the first time in Yakuza ever, there isn't a 20-minute cutscene explaining everything at once or an obsession with minutia. Our first cutscene is Kiryu picking up the phone and learning Haruka's been kidnapped, followed immediately by the zombie outbreak starting. Later on, we get a small cutscene at the start of Kiryu's route where Haruka is invited to her old orphanage for a ceremony, and ends with Kiryu and the kids waving goodbye as she heads out. Kidnapping explained! We can fill in the gaps ourselves, and Dead Souls knows this. It respects our time, gives us a ton of laughs, and keeps us glued to our seats for the next ridiculous escalation it's building to. It's still a Yakuza game. Despite being a zombie-infested hellhole, Kamurocho is still Kamurocho. All the businesses and shops in and out of the quarantine zone are happy to continue operating, so long as you liberate them from zombie aggression and are still willing to pay the standard price. The hostess bars are open, the karaoke bar is open, and the Club Sega is offering the best version of Boxelios. Boxelios 2 Turbo. Oh hell yes! It's a faster, hectic Boxelios 2 with a new charge shot ability, and it rocks. I am going to have an affair with Boxelios 2 Turbo. Boxelios 2 and 1 will catch us in the act and join the party, and I will be enough man for all of them. The minigames have improvements over their Yakuza 4 counterparts too. Mahjong has triumphant music play when calling Richi, and Hostess Hangouts have skippable animations so you don't have to sit through the long introduction sequences each time. And yeah, I did the Mahjong Cup tournament in this one too. You can't stop me. No one can. Sub-stories are bountiful and full of fun characters, playing with the what-ifs Dead Souls provides. Minor characters from the series make small appearances, but the real joy of sub-stories here are the subtle nods to and subversions from zombie media. One sub-story chain drags 3 of the 4 playable characters in Dead Souls into filming a zombie movie for cheap, using the carnage of Kamurocho as convenient props. Others will talk about zombie movie tropes and poke fun at the absurdity of its characters. And some are the usual Yakuza sub-story structure with fun zombie twists, which make for good Twitter memes. Due to the way Dead Souls' gameplay functions, most of these activities will remain outside of quarantine zones, or teleport you into the quarantine zone when you begin a relevant sub-story, and prompts for starting sub-stories are obvious and clear. The result is a distilled, approachable Yakuza experience with much to do, but separated from the zombie elements in a hassle-free way. It's a decent third-person shooter, contrary to what's been said about it. Now, Dead Souls was panned when it came out for having terrible controls. You can go read review after review discuss its poor aiming, bad camera, and slow movement. You can believe what these reviews say and write Dead Souls off as a frustrating, impossible game to play, or, and I know this is a huge gamble, you can believe me. I could be wrong, I usually am. There's a whole comment section telling me monster taming started in SMT before Dragon Quest, and I really wish they would stop. My path in life is to take 100 shots and hope I land adjacent to the bullseye, but Dead Souls' shooting mechanics are perfectly fine, and dare I say it, feel great. The key to its success is Dead Souls being aware of 2 things. 1, the main audience is Yakuza fans who may not be familiar with third-person shooters. 2, the player is using a controller. For those reasons, there are 3 aiming modes. A blind fire mode you can use to automatically shoot zombies while you're running through the swarm, a strafing mode suited for tight spaces and guns with rapid fire, and a manual aiming mode you can upgrade early to have automatic head tracking. It's a variety of options for any given situation, and it mitigates much of the stress aiming with a control stick causes. The impactful sound effects and quick, snappy shooting makes getting headshots as gratifying as blasting a path through the quarantine zone. Penalties for not reloading an empty gun before shooting, brawl techniques to space enemies out when you're overwhelmed, and a required awareness of your surroundings makes for some fun shoot bangs. Dead Souls even converted heat moves into heat snipes, special abilities you can activate to create set pieces and creative ways to deal with zombies. Shooting exploding barrels, a stack of steel beams at the edge of a roof, or a tank of liquid nitrogen so you can pick up a frozen zombie and beat other zombies to death with it activates the same part of my reptilian brain that gets happy when I watch small children fall and eat shit. Bouncing through aiming modes as you deal with enemy encounters and waiting until just the right moment to use a heat snipe on an explosive for maximum gain is exhilarating. It's accessible, it's versatile, it's responsive, and I couldn't ask for much else. Dead Souls is a zombie Dynasty Warriors. So let me get this straight. My total zombies killed persists on the top right of the screen. There are multiple playable characters, each with their own signature weapons, with a variety of other guns suited for dealing with different enemy types. Enemies pour in from all angles, and I have special moves I can trigger after building my ability meter. The goal isn't about killing every single enemy I see as much as it is getting to my destination or completing specific objectives? Sounds like a Dynasty Warriors to me. In a huge departure from the series, Yakuza Dead Souls is a zombie-themed Musou game. It combines the better ideas from contemporaries of the zombie and horror genre, but knows its limits. Its third-person shooting mechanics are loosely based off of Resident Evil 4. Very loosely. And if you've played Left 4 Dead, the mutants will look familiar. But Dead Souls recognizes it can't replicate either title it's paying homage to. Instead, Dead Souls retools everything to better fit the aggressive, ceaseless mode down of zombies it wants to be. The crybaby summons more zombies and can make a bad situation worse. The meathead can only be damaged with headshots, but is slow and lumbering, making it a looming threat you need to eventually deal with. The aggro shambles along passively but becomes hyper-aggressive if damaged, making it a target you want to avoid hitting if you can. Dead Souls also throws in some nasty prototype monsters as bosses too, referencing different Resident Evil boss fights.
これを使って。対戦車ミサイルよ。それで腹の弱点を狙って。
With how fast Dead Souls' mission-based structure is, you're constantly fighting different kinds of enemies and making use of different styles of weapon to deal with them. It's difficult to fall into a boring pattern as long as you're experimenting with what's available to you. You'll end up using every weapon type as you swap around trying to discover a faster means of dispatching a mutant. The pressure Dead Souls applies comes in the form of the constantly spawning hordes of zombies, the combination of mutants you can run into, the limited ammo for anything but handguns, and its use of the environment. Suddenly, Kabuto-cho's urban landscape is a house of nightmares. The streets are blocked off by fallen buildings and toppled cars, forcing you into the claustrophobic alleys where you could be easily overwhelmed. Little Asia and the Champion District are tight spaces requiring fast reaction times. Even still, open sections like Theater Square or Park Boulevard are now home to huge numbers of mutants, with well-timed heat snipes and calculated elimination being the key to survival. It has a roguelike mode. The Kabuto-cho Subterranea is a series of tunnels with unknown origin, said to mysteriously change shape after being cursed decades ago. Doing favors for an occult magazine editor looking to learn more, because of course they would. The playable cast of Dead Souls each descend an increasing number of floors in separate gauntlets, searching for clues. The Subterranea is a roguelike dungeon with procedurally generated floors and comes with your typical roguelike elements. Every 10 floors has a boss fight, sometimes a floor can have a vendor on it, and specific rooms can spawn on every floor. Challenge areas, like the trap room, which requires you to eliminate all the enemies inside to move past, and item rooms at dead ends to make the sting of backtracking a little more bearable. Enemies are also randomized by the Subterranea and can be difficult to get past if you're unlucky and encounter 2 meatheads in a tiny hallway. Or get an entire floor of these Molotov-chucking zombies designed intentionally to prevent you from walking past everything. Having a roguelike section in Dead Souls gives us a different set of rules to play with from time to time. It inverts the Yakuza series' idea of being familiar with the space you're in. The quarantine zone has predetermined areas for specific mutants and heat snipes, and you'll quickly learn how to best approach those spots. But the Subterranea is always different and makes you rely on instinct. Every decision adds to the gamble of whether or not you'll find the ladder to the next floor. It also doesn't overstay its welcome. Everyone gets 2 missions to enter its shape-shifting tunnels, and they're always at the end of the character's playable section. Even though the other entrances stay open, these missions point each character to a new entry point with a slightly different version of the Subterranea to run through. This way, players aren't constantly going back to the same exact place or running the gauntlet too many times in short succession. Kiryu only has 1 mission in the Subterranea requiring him to run through it. This is because completing it unlocks Dead Souls' secret boss. One I'm going to keep to myself, but if you've done any of Yakuza's secret bosses before, you won't be surprised. Beating the secret boss unlocks the Subterranea's endless mode, and this. Who would win? A million gnawing, clawing creatures of the undead, or one middle-aged man with a smartphone? Majima and Ryuji Goda are both playable characters. This is the first Yakuza game to give players control of Goro Majima, and it's the one Yakuza game where playing as Majima makes the most sense, because in Dead Souls, we are all Majima. I don't think it's hit you yet. This is the first time we get to see Majima outside of cutscenes and talking to normal people. His sub-stories are hilarious, some showing the way he interacts with his family members in Daigo Dojima, others revealing his humanity, or at least what's left of it. Dead Souls takes the opportunity to flesh him out through Majima's funny dialogue with other characters. Ryuji Goda gets more screen time too, and he's kept faithful to his original personality.
なんでそんなわしにこだわるんや。わしは登場かよ。そして兄貴を来ないにした桐生一馬をこのままでは済ませられんのですわ。桐生のことは
もうええんや。わしはあの男に語れへんかった。ただそれだけの話。
Ryuji's sub-stories are incredibly warm-hearted moments, proving to fans of the series that, were things different, he and Kiryu would have gotten along famously. At one point, he's cooking for some starving kids. At another, he isn't hesitating at throwing himself into danger to save total strangers and escort them out of the quarantine zone. It's amazing how much Dead Souls does with the little time it has to spend on Ryuji and Majima. In the handful of hours we're playing as them, each plot development informs us a little more about who they are and how they think. Majima goes from being batshit insane to becoming an anti-hero who happens to be batshit insane.
お前ら死にとうなかったら店の棚窓に寄せるんや。女子供は多く食い物と水は数数えて配給せや。さっさと動けやボケ。
Ryuji gets his own character arc reflecting on his growth since losing to Kiryu, and it concludes with satisfying payoffs. It kinda sucks. Dead Souls isn't canon, yet it provides us with an extended look into two of the series' most popular and influential figures. So why didn't it sell? Well, back in the late aughts, early 2010s, there was a small period of time called the Zombie Craze. The Zombie Craze was a moment in recent video game history when everyone and their poorly accredited game design course professor was releasing some kind of zombie-related product. Dead Rising happened in 2006, then Left 4 Dead 2 cemented its viability as a profitable theme, and the floodgates had opened. Dead Space, Dead Island, Call of Duty World at War's highly popular zombie mode, and smack dab in the middle of the bloated carcass that was the zombie genre came Yakuza Dead Souls in 2011. Like a carry-on feeder looking to take the scraps of revenue left by those who came before it. By then, we were exhausted by zombies. Everyone had a zombie something. The Walking Dead had ads before every YouTube video, and every car had one of those stupid zombie-killing squad stickers on the rear windshield like we all didn't pee ourselves in terror and frustration when our internet went down. Despite the obvious work put into making Dead Souls a fun and unique experience, it looked like a major cash grab in the crowd of zombie games trying to hitch a ride on Left 4 Dead's coattails. And let's be honest, it probably was a cash grab to begin with. Its huge differences from the rest of the series also made it a difficult sell to veteran fans. How do you explain to someone the new Yakuza game isn't technically a mainline entry, but still has everything from the main games, just not the combat, so it's not a spin-off, but also it's a totally different genre, so it's not really a mainline title, but it is though. You see what I mean? The in-between spin-off and not spin-off nature of Dead Souls is a unique problem and makes it nearly impossible to market it to any audience successfully. It, also runs a bit shit. A destroyed city means lots of smoke and fire particle effects, and paired with the high resource costs of special mutant zombies, friendo, you've got a big old pot of chugga-slugga stew. Slowdowns are more common towards the end of Dead Souls when the city's practically on fire and every other enemy is a mutant. You can avoid some of them once you're familiar with the map since, again, enemy placement in Kamado-cho's infected zone doesn't change. Depending on how much you like Musou gameplay, shooting can get a little repetitive if you're sticking to one character for too long. The workaround there is to move on to the next character or swap your weapons around and try something new. This isn't one of my "this is intentional" moments though. Sorry, but the shooting gets repetitive because it isn't as context sensitive as, say, the entire ability list from previous Yakuza titles. Obviously, your tolerance for frame rate and repetition issues will influence how much you get out of Dead Souls, but I'm digging my heels into the sand and insisting you'll enjoy it anyway. Still, it wouldn't be very nice of me to make my case without giving you one or two caveats. Let's talk about indifference. Kamado-cho's way of handling a frightening pandemic should strike us as odd. After all, on the other side of the barricade walls, life carries on for most of its citizens. The pandemic is an inconvenience. The pandemic is ignored to the best of everyone's ability. The pandemic is downplayed by the defense force, and information about it is being suppressed. This used to seem far-fetched, but Dead Souls gains powerful accuracy in retrospect. Some don't care much about it and do their best to keep life going as it always has. Others look out for themselves and view small efforts to protect others as attacks on their agency. The zombie problem is largely ignored outside the barricade walls. The survivors inside the quarantine zone are left to fend for themselves. The zombies break through the barriers and more walls are erected to surround the bigger infected zone. The pandemic is a danger in plain sight. The barricades are blinders, slowly turning from nuisances into a last line of defense. Yet still, Kamurocho's people remain ambivalent or indignant. But some people set aside their differences and realize working together is their best means for survival. Akiyama quickly allies himself with like-minded individuals while trying to protect his assistant from harm's way. Ryuji and Kiryu immediately join forces to put a stop to the source of the infection, and even Majima acts selflessly to save a few survivors. Our four characters represent unity in the face of calamity, and together save Kamurocho. It's a cautionary tale about how dangerous a problem can become when we collectively try to sweep it under the rug. It's a firm message on how remaining steadfast, taking precautions, and understanding when something is bigger than you and your picadillos is the key to mitigating tragedy, and a warning about doomsaying and giving up on surviving before the opportunity has even presented itself.
人生は過酷だ。そんなことてめえに言われるまでもね。生きるってのは全力でそれぞれの人生に立ち向かうことだ。お前はなぜそれを滑稽と笑う？
Yakuza Dead Souls is a delicious treat of a time. Along with Kenzan, Dead Souls was an early sign of Ryuga Gotoku Studios not being afraid to try something vastly different. It's likely Dead Souls was also a first attempt working with shooter elements they'd build around in Binary Domain a few months later. Dead Souls has solid closure. Ryuji Goda gets a redemption arc, the zombie virus is stopped, and life returns to normal. It's hard to believe we've only just reached the halfway point in this series, and Dead Souls set the tempo for the kind of experiences Ryuga Gotoku Studios wanted to deliver from now on. Drastic changes to gameplay mechanics, taking more chances on new ideas, reinforcing their emotional storytelling, and challenging themselves to balance even greater levels of absurdity against it. From here on out, Yakuza is a different kind of beast. I know this video is a little different from what we usually do on Questrospective, but given Yakuza Dead Souls' lighter tone, I figured something with a little less gravitas was more appropriate. I don't usually do this, but since we're halfway through the Questrospective, please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and if there's a series or subject matter you'd like to see me cover, go ahead and let me know. My name's GC. Until next time, thank you so much for supporting me in everything I do. Thanks for watching the videos, and thank you for questing with me.